Go on, Suncoast. Skip my words out like a stone across the surface till they're swallowed by the waves. Will I ever find the answers to the questions? Has that ship sunk to its grave? Echo wind is coming like a voice against the stone. Hear the heartbeat rhythm as the sound fills up my lungs. As the sound fills up my lungs. A stone upon the water, I sink into the silence. I got lost within the currents of the chaos. You came riding on the wind. Echo wind is coming like a voice against the storm. Hear the heartbeat rhythm. Echo wind is coming like a voice against the storm. Hear the heartbeat rhythm as the sound fills up my your voice every song, rising like the dawn. Feel it on my skin. Echo wind is coming. Echo wind is coming like a voice against the storm. Hear the heartbeat rhythm as the sound fills up my lungs. An echo wind is coming like a voice against the storm. Hear the heartbeat rhythm as the sound fills up my
beneath the surface of my anxious imagination beckons a calmness that is found in you alone. It washes over every doubt, every imperfection. Jesus, your presence is the comfort of my soul. There's nowhere I'd rather be when you're singing over me.
going to do? Look at what everybody's going through. What kind of world do you want it to be? Am I the future or the history? 'Cause everyone hurts, everyone cries, everyone tells each other all kinds of lies, and everyone falls, everybody dreams and doubts. Gotta keep dancing when the lights go out. How in the world am I going to see you as my brother, not my enemy? 'Cause everyone hurts, everyone cries, everyone sees the color in each other's eyes. Everyone loves, everybody gets their hearts ripped out. Gotta keep dancing when the lights go out. We're gonna keep dancing when the lights go out. Hold tight for everyday life. Hold tight for everyday life. First sight from my arms open wide. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Thank you guys for singing out with us. Enjoy the service.
Good morning. Goodness. What great energy this crowd has. Thank you so much for being here. So today we're talking about lots of things, but I just want to take a few moments to just thank you for being here. And, you know, we're still in the mask season, so wear the mask when you can, and we appreciate that, but we're not going to beat somebody up if you don't. Secondly, I want to remind you while you're in here, there is, I had shoulder surgery 12 weeks ago this week. And you remember me saying, you know, you can imagine twice. So look at this. We have air conditioning vents. This arm can finally go up, but we have air conditioning vents, 4 of them in this building that bring fresh air in all the time. So at least we're getting a lot of recycled fresh air, and I appreciate that because I like fresh air, as I know you do too. But life is good, isn't it? So I'm grateful for all the things. So today, as we look at all the different things, let me give you an update on a couple things before I jump in. You know, people keep asking when we're going to do oil change again and that kind of stuff. Well, the barn is coming back together finally, maybe by Thanksgiving next year. So I don't know. Probably by January, we should be back in that arena, being able to do that again. But maybe before that, we'll just wait and see. But thank you so much for being here. And if you're watching this online, thank you so much for tuning in. And we appreciate you value us by when you watch us online as well. So today we're in Nehemiah. We've been in Nehemiah for quite a while, and I'm jumping around in the book of Nehemiah. I've read a lot of it to you, so I'm not going to read as much today, but I'll indicate some in the story. But in the story of Nehemiah, simply, Nehemiah is the guy that was responsible for coming back from exile and rebuilding the Jewish city, Jerusalem. And this was in about 536 BC. Life was good, it went bad, they got conquered, taken away, and finally they were able to come back. And he's responsible. And the story of rebuilding starts with a dream. And we talked about that. And this teaching is on dream. Recently, a Suncoaster shared her story with me via email after the first in the dream series. This lady grew up in difficult circumstances. She had a dysfunctional family, like many do. And her dream, believe it or not, a dream to be normal. I just want to live in a normal home, normal family, normal circumstance. I don't want to, have a normal life just like I see as possible. She had good models from grandparents, not so good models from a dad that had some issues. But she had just normal. She wanted a normal marriage and have a little girl. After years of anguish and difficulty in relationships and other things, she eventually met a wonderful man and got married. And she wrote this to me. She said she was told she could not have children, but it was her dream to have a little girl. And one day, after a 2.5-year wait with on an adoption list, they received notice that a young pregnant mom had seen their profile and chose them to be the parents of her baby. She said, I was in the birthing room when this little girl was born, and the mother had already realized it was going to be my little girl. And she said, what a dream. And this dream was fulfilled. And it's good for me to remind you that you can dream big dreams, and dreams can come true. But sometimes the difference between dreams coming true and dreams not coming true is a lot of effort. For example, if you want to win the lottery, you have to buy a ticket. Then you're still not going to win. But if you expect a dream to come true, I want to build a business and stay at home all day, it's probably not going to happen. You want to have a dream come true where you have a normal family, a normal life, you have to get out there. You have to put your name on an adoption list if it works that way. I mean, there are things you have to do to make things happen, but dreams can come true. I'm a person who've lived lots of dreams, and it's not just one dream. There's a dream for this, and then there's a dream for this. I remember as a young man, I thought, man, someday I'm going to go to college. I dreamed it, and I went to college. Then that wasn't enough. I dreamed graduate school, and I did that. And then I had this dream for a PhD, and then they would accomplish that and say, well, after you accomplish all your dreams, what do? You dream again, and you keep dreaming, because life is about dreams. It's about believing that things can be better and working toward that end. Keep dreaming, for it is our dreams that motivate our journey in life. So we've looked at dreams. First week we talked about shattered dreams and how Nehemiah was broken because he was just so crushed that his hometown was just destroyed. And then we talked about keeping silent until the dreams are confirmed by God. So it's one thing to dream a dream and dream all these dreams, but sometimes you have to wait and say, is this the right dream for me? And then we have to overcome the dream killers. You know who those are? Those who criticize us, and most often, I hate to say it this way, our hardest critics are those whom we love the most. Sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's a spouse, a sibling. Just people say, oh, I know you could never do that. I knew you'd never grow up to be anything. Dream killers, criticism. And then last week we talked about dreaming with integrity. That once your dream is accomplished, it's not that you have it all. Keep dreaming and be humble about your life. Today I want to talk to you about this thought. How do I find God's purpose for my life? So, to find God's purpose for our life requires inner reflection. See, God's call upon our life is not just for us to survive, but to thrive. So let me use an example. In the Grand Hall out here, there are several ficus trees, Ficus benjamina. How do I know that? Because my cousin owned a nursery, and every time I'd go see him, I'd get this botanical education that I really didn't want. But when I wanted trees, I got all these trees free. So if you look out in the Grand Hall, I actually picked those trees up in Homestead and brought them back. They're kind of braided and they're twisted around. But when we got those here, one of the things about these trees that's interesting, they have an interesting dynamic that when they're in the sun, they will actually sprout and put on sun leaves to attract the sun. And when they're in the shade, if you bring them inside, they will drop all the sun leaves and they'll put on shade leaves. It's unique about this particular type of plant. So when we got these, I mean, the trees always, we brought them here, they always look bad. Then I found out my custodians who were working at the time, they do not work here now. I would not throw Henley on the bus at all. But this is pre-Henley. But they what they did, they said, these trees look sick, let's put them outside. And we'll water them and leave them outside for 3 days. And on the weekend, we'll bring them back in for the weekend. And we put them outside. So what they're doing, they're dropping their sun leaves. They get inside, they're dropping their shade. It just doesn't matter what you did, you're hurting the tree. And then all of a sudden, we discovered what was going on. I said, look, you got to leave these trees inside. Do not move them outside. Never move them. And never trim them. I trim them myself with scissors. That's how ridiculous it is. But we also have some of the custodial help. They fertilize them now. And if you notice those trees out there, they're not just surviving, but they're thriving. And some of you understand what that means. If you've been raised on a farm, it's one thing to have a crop that just grows mediocrity in a mediocre fashion, but it's another thing to have a crop that really thrives. And today it's true about our lives. So many of us, we just survive. But I want you to know, I think there's more for us that we can thrive. So I want to challenge you today, and that's the theme of what I want to talk about. How do I begin to thrive? And I'm going to give you some principles. To begin with, I need to understand that my purpose in life is not just about me thriving, but it's about me serving. Regardless of my vocation, regardless of my job, I can make a difference in the world right where I am. See, I think God calls all of us to make a difference. I feel like in my life, He calls me to show the love of Christ to those around me. But to find God's purpose for my life, to find that which enables me to thrive, I need to pause and spend some time in reflection. And folks, you hear me say a lot about reflection because I'm a big believer in reflection. So what is reflection? It could be prayer, it could be meditation. It's just stopping your running and thinking about your life. And maybe having a conversation with God about your life or having a conversation with yourself. So in reflection, how do I find my purpose? So what steps can I take that will help me find great value in my life? And they're in your notes. Here's the first suggestion today. Step 1, recognize virtuous values and adopt them as my own. Virtuous values. I got to figure out what they are first, and then I want to adopt them. Years ago, a national survey discovered that the number one stress factor is not that we don't have enough time. It's not that we don't have enough money. Number one stress factor is not that we don't have enough relational conflicts, which we do, but the number one source of stress is what we call incongruent values. So what does that mean? We say we believe one thing, but we act like we believe something else. You know, this is never more true than it is in the church. It's true in a lot of theology, and I'm going to be talking about that a little more later, but just to whet your appetite, it's very true in the church. People come in and say, this is what I believe, this is what I believe, this is what I believe, and they go, but how do you live? Well, I live completely like this doesn't exist. Somewhere that needs to come back together. We need to change our lifestyle, we need to change our belief structure, and sometimes it's both. Fair enough? Sometimes we need to change the way we live, and other times we need to change and reevaluate what we believe and why we believe it. But the gap between what we say is important and what actually is important causes stress. For example, we can say my family is important to me, but surveys show us the average father spends less than 5 minutes a day in conversation, one-on-one with his child. We say family is important, but we work and put everything else ahead of it. We're gone all the time. Or we might say health is important. Do we watch our weight? Not enough. Do we eat right? Sometimes. Do we exercise? I love the guy who says, you mean extra fries? I mean, that's the synonym for exercise. Not very well. Do we practice good health habits? Sometimes, but mostly not really. If health is important to you, then your life should show that. We say materialism is bad. Are we saving anything? Not much. Are we spending all we get? Mostly. When we say God is first in my life, what does that mean? When we have competing values, it's called the dilemma. And when both of those things are competing, it causes problems and causes stress. When we learn what's really important in our life, when we can reflect for a few moments and say, these really are important in my life, and we clarify our values and we act accordingly, our stress will dramatically go down and our peace of mind will dramatically go up. Nehemiah, this Old Testament person, was motivated after a period of prayer to leave the palace where life was pretty good. But he was motivated by a dream to go and rebuild the walls of his hometown. Jerusalem was not just a hometown. It was a source of identity for his whole entire nation. It was his symbol of values, so he acted according to his values. But what are virtuous values? That leads me right to point 2. Strive to live by values that make humanity better. That's pretty simple, isn't it? It's almost common sense, but I discovered common sense is not so common anymore. It's definitely not common in the political world. You see things, you just go, where's our country going? I'm disturbed. I'm not a political guy, but I am disturbed by the big divide in our country, and I'd love for it to come back together, and I hope that it can in some fashion. But I think if it's going to happen, it needs to start here. We need to be the primary place where healing takes place. But strive to live by values that make humanity better. What are those values? Where do we find them? One place we find them is in the teachings of Jesus. Most of the values we find them when we quiet our minds in reflection. So where do I find them? Well, just read the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5. And blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek. Just think about the values. See, our values influence our stress, and our values also influence our success. In Proverbs, the great writer says this: above all else, guard your affections. What it really means, guard your values, for they influence everything else in your life. If you tell me what you value, it'll be easy to predict the direction of your life. You say, I value this, then I can see where your life is going. Most of the time, when we make a decision, we're relying on our values, and our values determine what's important to us. See, our values control our destiny, and they control our success. And we say they do and they don't. That's where the stress comes in, the incongruent values. So, what are the things that are important to us? I can tell you what a great time waster is. I think the greatest time waster in our life is when we live by values that at the end of life you go, that really wasn't important to me. And you've heard all of the cliches. No one ever, on their deathbed said, I wish I'd spend more time in the office. No one says that. It's because they realize that's not the value. But if our mind is torn between 2 values, we have no energy. We struggle to commit to anything because we're going in so many different directions. But let me suggest, when you and I figure out why we are living, we can discover the what and the how to live. Do you know, according to the Nielsen report, United States adults are watching 5 hours and 4 minutes of television per day. That's 35 hours a week watching television. That's more than some people work, less than others. But it's more than 77 days a year. Social media time for 2019 in the U.S. is 2 hours and 6 minutes. Now, I'm just saying social media. So you do all these 5 hours a day and then another 2 hours. How do you have time to sleep or work? I mean, are we surviving or are we thriving? Good question. For what are you going to give your life? Are your values reflecting your lifestyle? This is a challenge. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but I'm telling you and suggesting that you take time, reflect on the values that are most important to you. Which leads me to the last thing today, and it's this. Discover the source of authentic values. See, I can find out, strive to live by values that make humanity better, but if I want to find out what those are, look at the source of authentic values. Where we are going, let me suggest, we are going to get our values from somewhere. What's the source of my values? 2 primary sources for values for most of us. 2 main categories, including getting our values either from the teachings of Jesus, or I got my values from culture, or some people say, no, not just culture, from my home. My parents taught me values. And some of the values that are taught at home, even by some parents, are not good values. Some of the homes that we grew up in were not healthy. They were not fully functional. But when it comes to American, and there are many other cultures, we can summarize our entire value system in our country, the values of culture, 3 words. Here's the first word, sorry. Here's the first word. Pleasure. Our culture values pleasure. We are a very sensual society. And the number one industry in America now is entertainment. We just want to have fun. Society says live for pleasure. And listen carefully. Pleasure's fine. But pleasure should not be the goal of your life. Finding purpose in life is the result of doing the next right thing. And doing what is right most often leads to feelings of contentment and pleasure. And pleasure's okay, but usually it's one of the values of culture, but it follows the other great values of our life. See, our values are distorted when we allow our primary source of education to come through the media. And boy, if you watch the TV, as I do, you say, are you watching that? Are you guilty of those 5 hours a day? No, but I still watch it. I check what's going on. And the elections this year that are happening are driving the country to a point of fear. We shouldn't be afraid, and the biggest fear is fear. We shouldn't be afraid of that, we should move beyond that. In my opinion, the fear is driven mostly by the media, not by the facts. Number 2, possessions. Our culture says the one with the most toys wins. We are consumed with consuming. I love this quote. Americans believe in life, liberty, and the purchase of happiness. We try it. Well, someone said, I'll buy it, and I'm going to live within my income, even if I have to charge it. Not a good thing to say. Too many believe that our self-worth is based on our net worth. Our self-worth and our net worth are not the same. Our value and our valuables are not the same. Acquisition is not the measure of success. Jesus says in Luke chapter 12, beware, don't always be wishing for what you don't have. Real life and real living are not related to how rich we are. Acquisition is not the measure of success. I have a friend of mine who told me, true story, he said, I made $900,000 last year and I feel like a failure. I go, you made $900,000 last year? Why would you feel like a failure? He said, well, my goal was $1 million. He said, the year before that was only $875,000. He said, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, you poor guy. Come and cry on my shoulder and I'll strangle you. Anyway, that's a different story. Somebody asked Howard Hughes, how much does it take to make a man happy? And he responded, just a little bit more. A verse in Ecclesiastes says this, if you love money, you'll never have enough. We will never be satisfied because we will always want more. Isn't it amazing? Some of us struggle on income today that 10 years ago you thought would make you wealthy. Yet it's just the spending keeps going. It always takes more. So pleasure, possessions is taught by our culture. The third thing is taught by our culture is prestige or power, or popularity or position. Something that makes you feel good about who you are, status. We want to be looked up to. In our culture, image is important, isn't it? I've read the book Dress for Success. I practiced it for years and I don't do it anymore. But anyways, or you dress to impress. We say, the world says to us, watch me. And when you watch me, you'll see where I eat, where I live, what I wear, maybe the car I drive. I must have it together because I'm important. We live for fame or to be a celebrity or get someone to look up to us. See, most commercials appeal to this thought, and I love this. They always try to make me feel that I'd be better if I own their product. That's just standard marketing. Somebody said that the man who invented the mirror, he began to lose his soul because he began to be influenced by image rather than character. Years ago, I did a series on the book of Ecclesiastes, which is a journal of one of the wealthiest men ever to live. Some people think it was Solomon, but really in the Hebrew it's Koheleth, which is the word which means like a king. But out of the top 10 incomes in history would not equal the wealth of this king. He was the richest man who ever lived, very powerful. He controlled the empire. He had pleasures galore. He said, I went after every pleasure you could think of. I denied myself nothing. Then he said, I tried pleasure, possessions, prestige, and it is not there. I have it. I have it all, and I'm not happy. It's meaningless. See, it's useless if we don't have a greater purpose in life than those values. When challenged, the writer to Ecclesiastes said, out of all the things I've tried, there's only one thing that matters, and it's living your life faithfully, trusting God, following what he suggests for us to do. It's useless if we don't have a greater purpose in life than these values. The problem is that most of the values we have, we didn't choose. You probably have some values today that were imposed upon you or indoctrinated into you. They crept upon us. Maybe it's by peer pressure, society, or family. We just automatically accept them. We got caught up in the race. But the number one creator and supporter of values today is, in our society, believe it or not, is not parents. It's not even our culture. It's social media. It's internet, Facebook, Netflix. They present values that sneak up on us. They get us laughing. We think it's okay. Then we just accept them into our lives without a lot of thought. Too often, it's sad when we base our values on things that we didn't choose. So what do we do? It's the right question. Reflect. Take a moment. Recognize virtuous values and accept them as my own. Strive to live by the values that make humanity better. Number 2. 3, discover the source of authentic values. What is that? It's this personal connection with God that you can have that'll change your heart. And how do we find that? You read about it. You listen to me teach about it. It's found in the teachings of Jesus, and it's a game changer and a life changer. Can I pray for you today? Father, thank you for your love and grace. Thank you for teaching us as only you can. Thank you for the joy of following a value of service and love and kindness and reconciliation and humiliation. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to work in ways that we didn't ever think was possible. But once we go there, at the end of the day, we go, this was a good day. God was honored by my life, and I helped some people. Father, do your work in our lives as only you can, we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Would you stand, please? I'm going to tell you a story in closing. And it's a good story. I was talking to a friend of mine recently whose husband, also a friend of mine, these are Suncoasters, he had knee surgery. He was in the hospital for days. And with knee surgery in the hospital at that time, a few months ago, no one could go see you. So he's in there all by himself, going through the surgery all by himself, and no visitors. And finally, his wife was communicating with him on the phone and said, okay, I can be discharged. You can come and pick me up. She went to the hospital, and she had to check in, from the outside. There's a COVID protocol to pick people up, so they don't want you inside. So she got in her car. She's in a car line. And she pulls up to the door to pick up, where you pick up your patient or your loved one. And she waited in line for a while and slowly moved up. And when it was her turn to pick up her husband, she wasn't paying attention. She was kind of moving around in the car, getting everything ready for him to get in the car. And the aide opened the door to put her husband inside the car. And when she looked up, she was surprised because the door was open and the wheelchair was there, and there was this guy. And she said, I'm so sorry. That's not my husband. Oh, no. And the guy in the wheelchair said, hey, I'm okay with it. And she said, I'm really so sorry. I'm really so sorry, but I really should get my husband. And her husband was just next in line. It wasn't a big deal. They just got, just out of line one. So he was next in line. He was already in a wheelchair. They pulled him up and they helped him get in. And he was still in pain from the surgery. And because he felt nauseous, they gave him a bag to take with him in the car. His loving wife told me that she was a little nervous about her husband getting sick in the car. And he was there in pain and nauseous and sick. And she said, there was a thought that crossed my mind just for a moment. Just for a moment. Maybe I should have taken the first guy. We laugh because it's just ridiculous. But I'm sure the thought has crossed your mind. Maybe it's crossed your mind that maybe God would be better off to have chosen someone else. Maybe he loves someone else more. But I want you to hear me very clearly. He wants you to know no one can take your place. He loves you today. So do I. God bless. Thanks for coming.